Hello, welcome to MovieFlame, the face behind the million-plus subscriber channel MovieFlame. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably know I went to film school. I talk about it a lot because it's one of the best things I've ever done. I thought I would pop on here and give you guys my experience of what film school was like because I've actually had a lot of people ask me. It's actually a really nice story and one that is very poetic and comes full circle in a very gratifying way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Before we get to my freshman year of college, we have to go back about 8 years. I had wanted to go to film school since I was about 10 years old. I always knew that was where I would end up. Back then, I was obsessed with those 2-disc special edition DVDs with the behind the scenes. I especially love the Star Wars behind the scenes featurettes and documentaries. I've for sure seen those more than the actual Star Wars films. And that's saying something, because I've probably seen the Star Wars films more than any other movie franchise. Watching them, I idolized George Lucas, and it made me want to become a director. The documentary called Empire of Dreams is still to this day my favorite documentary of all time, because it is literally what birthed my passion for filmmaking. It basically went over George Lucas's life both leading up to making Star Wars and while making the original trilogy. They talk about George's early days, going to film school, wowing his professors, going above and beyond for every project, and they even interviewed some of his old professors. Finding out that he studied film at USC, that's where I wanted to go. For years, I wanted to be a director. That's all I thought about. This dream became even more true when I discovered the internet sensation James Rolfe. He's famous for his Angry Video Game Nerd series, but what I enjoyed most were his movie reviews and of course his original films. Not only did he go to film school in Philadelphia, which for me was just a train away, but he made me realize that I didn't have to wait to go to film school to make movies. He did it as a kid, so why couldn't I? Immediately, I started making my own films and movie reviews, and they were just awful.
What's the word testicles? Oh my god!
I was young, my voice hadn't even dropped yet from puberty.
So he basically makes this transition into becoming Santa Claus.
But they were vital years because I taught myself the basics of filming, editing, stop motion, doing voiceovers, and so much more. I became obsessed, but as time went on, I soon discovered something on YouTube called vidding. Basically, you take a song, you take a movie or TV show, and you edit over top the song using clips from said fandom. I made too many videos to count on my first YouTube channel called The Red Sox Fan 18, and I did this for over 7 years. Again, the early stuff sucked, but I had so much fun making it. Around that time, I started high school, and I took a few film analysis classes, which by the way is awesome that my high school had them. That was one of my favorite parts of high school. But breaking down and studying films in these classes, and also with my obsession of vidding, I soon realized that I wanted to study the art of editing, not directing. I wanted to be the guy that cut the film together, and I started watching all the behind the scenes that I could, trying to learn how to perfect my craft. I eventually had the privilege to tour a production company in Philadelphia, which as I said was just a train ride away. Seeing this was life-changing. After that, I knew that my goal was to go to film school and one day end up working as an editor at one of these production companies in Philadelphia. So I kept up with vidding, kept perfecting my craft at editing, and I got better and better until I was pretty much a self-taught pro, and the subscribers were rolling in too. Seeing this success on YouTube, I not only fell in love with the art of editing, but social media as well. Unfortunately though, these videos I was making had copyright, so I couldn't make any money from it, but I continued to do it because I loved it. When the time came to start looking at colleges, I no longer wanted to go to USC like George Lucas. I wanted to go to Philadelphia because I had seen that there had been some real opportunities here. I ended up choosing LaSalle University because they not only gave me the opportunity to study film, but social media as well. The official title of my major was a communication major with a focus in mass media and social media with a film minor. I know, it's a mouthful. The film minor might as well have been a second major because the course load was very hefty, but hey, the more film classes the better. I remember visiting the school very early on, and when I walked into the comm department, they had this board with pictures of all of the students that had made it in the industry. I looked at my parents and I said, one day, I'm gonna be up there. So I finished high school, and after that following summer, I headed off for my freshman year of film school. To be honest, I did not start out great because I skipped like 3 meetings with my advisor/professor, which did not make him happy with me. His name was Brother Jerry, and he was super respected in the film industry, having been on too many sets to count, and he was super respected at LaSalle because he pretty much founded the comm department. At this time, he was about 80 years old, and because I missed those meetings, he did not like me. However, that would change when I had my first class with him. I proved myself academically, and I was a star student. I became his favorite student and he became my favorite professor. There were times where I would just walk into his office and we would talk for hours about film, TV shows, his time in the industry, and whatever else, and I loved it. I learned so much from this man, and he actually wrote me many glowing recommendations. The LaSalle film program was known for the great internships, which was another reason why I chose the school. When my junior year rolled around, the first year you're eligible to have an internship, I was super excited. I had all sorts of recommendations from Brother Jerry and a few other professors, and I applied to a bunch of production companies in Philadelphia. However, something went wrong. My mental health was acting up, which was something I had been struggling with since I was a teenager, and I had to go home, and I missed the cutoff for all of the interviews. It was a real bummer, especially because all of these great professors had vouched for me, but my mental health did have to come first. Ultimately, I looked at the bright side and saw this as a good thing because I could put my all into all of my film classes, something that some of my other friends couldn't do because they were so busy with their internships. I honestly think that I learned more because I didn't do it in my junior year. I took cinematography classes, editing classes, script writing classes, and even some weird ones like philosophy and film. When you look at all of my major classes, I got straight A's. Well, except for philosophy and film, I got a B in that. But that was a weird class, I'll tell you that. But it was very interesting. We studied the Kurosawa films, which were actually huge inspirations for George Lucas when making Star Wars. Now, I'll just go over some highlights that film school gave me, both good and bad. I took a whole class studying Harry Potter, which was freaking awesome. I was certainly the star of that class. I also took a class on just studying the film Citizen Kane, which is regarded by most as the greatest film ever made. There was so much to break down, it was absolutely wild. On top of that, I took a really interesting class called TV production, which basically studied live TV. Our class literally had our own TV show on LaSalle TV, which was also broadcasted on local cable. Every week we made a new episode, which was basically a news segment, and every week everybody had a different job, whether that be the talent, the camera guy, the director, the in-studio technicians, and so much more. The weirdest job I had for this class was working the teleprompter for the talent, as you had to keep it going at the pace they were talking. It was probably my least favorite position, and for some reason I was so good at everything else but sucked at the easiest job. Another cool class was editing, which was one I was most excited for obvious reasons. We had one project where we had to recreate a scene from a film shot by shot, which was really interesting. Script writing classes were also really fun, and I actually took 5 different classes on this. For the 5th and final class, our final project was to write a TV episode about a sitcom, so people did it on The Big Bang Theory, Friends, and whatever else. But I was like, no, I'm going all out for this. Instead of writing a 20-minute TV episode, I wrote an original 2-hour movie. I also made a ton of original films and did too many small videos to count, which were all great fun to make. I made a horror movie, which is actually uploaded to this channel as the first video. We had just a few days to make it, which was the whole challenge. What can you do in just 4 days' time? There was another project I did where I recreated a music video turning God's Plan by Drake into LaSalle's Plan, which was a hit with all of my friends and everybody else at LaSalle. It went low-key viral on our Facebook page. And as I said, breaking down my major, I also studied a lot of social media. It taught me pretty much everything you have to know and how to be successful on it. And not to flex, but we all know how that went. I also took some animation classes, and I made one animation with all original art drawn by me, which is crazy because I suck at drawing. I put my all into that one. LaSalle also had a film festival every year, and they allowed students to make their own original films and submit them. And then they had this huge event in the gym with everybody watching. They had a red carpet and everything, and the best films were played on the big screen. I did this every year but one, and one year I even got to go up on stage, which was really cool. So I've talked about the highlights, but let's talk about the worst moment in film school for me. The worst project I ever had to do was make an hour-long cooking show. But it gets worse. It wasn't only doing a cooking show that sucked. Instead of giving us talent from the theater program, they gave us nutrition majors. I don't want to be mean, but they were just awful. They were not used to being in front of a camera, and they were so nervous that they not only forgot their lines, but their literal recipes too, the whole point of their project. I was gonna play some clips, but I don't want to expose them like that, even if I do blur out their face. It was brutal. I had to pull performances out of them because they were talking like this. And I was like, you gotta speak up. And they'd be like, oh, sorry. And I'd be like, that's not it either. Like, come on, you got this. Like, I was trying to encourage them, but at the same time, I was like, oh my God. And if filming this wasn't bad enough, Editing was even worse. It was brutal. But anyway, let's get back to the internships and my senior year. Wrapping up my junior year, Brother Jerry got me one of the best internships LaSalle had, and it was perfect for me. It was a production company right in Philadelphia, the thing I had been dreaming of for so long. And on top of that, he told me that if I did well, I would pretty much be guaranteed a job at this company. It would mean immediate security and immediate success at what I wanted to do. That summer though, everything changed. In summer of 2017, I launched the MovieFlame channel, and my first ever video blew the hell up. Following that, I was on the trending page for every single video. Video after video just kept blowing up, and it was awesome. I also started making some serious money, and this made me question everything. For the past 3 years, I had been studying the art of making videos and social media. And on top of that, I already had a pretty successful channel. I knew that if I gave this my all, I could be very successful with it. And again, eventually I was like, screw it, I'm gonna do the internship and YouTube. However, when the communication department found this out, they told me I had to pick one. And I get it, because they were partners with this company, and if they sent me there and I didn't do all of the work I was supposed to do because I was focused on YouTube, it would reflect badly on them. So I got it, but I had a huge decision to make. Should I do this unpaid internship and hope maybe down the line I get 40K a year? Or do I focus on YouTube where it looked like I would make way more than that and it had only been a month? Ultimately, I went with YouTube, and it turned out to be the best decision. I love my job, and I saw many of my friends go the route that I was going to go and end up hating it. They were forced to do the crappy work and do things they didn't want to do, much like I had to do with the cooking show. Can you imagine if I just kept making things like the cooking show week after week? That would be awful. Many of my friends actually changed career paths, which I don't think I would have done. But meanwhile, I used my degree to not only dissect shows, movies, books, and comics that I loved, but I started a legit business, making MovieFlame an official trademarked LLC media production company. I was able to create the very type of company that I had dreamed of working for, and I was my own boss, had my own hours, and made whatever the hell I wanted. I honestly could not have done this without going to film school though. Everything I learned there was so vital to my success here on YouTube. And before we wrap this up, I'll leave you with one last story. Remember when I told you about that board in the comm department that had all of the students that had made it? On one of my first visits to the school, I told my parents I would be up there one day. And then fast forward 4 years later, when I went back to the comm department to visit Brother Jerry, I walked past that very board, and front and center with the biggest picture was a picture of me. It was a really special moment, and my film school journey had come full circle in the most poetic and fitting way.